Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome into the latest edition of the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. I am Jacob Milham, back on the horn here with Jeremy Greco. And Jeremy, you have lined up a hell of a guest for us today, huh?
I mean, most of the credit goes to our guest of a couple weeks ago, Minda Coolman, who tuned me into our guest today, and I'm very excited for the conversation we're going to have.
Yes, that we are. And just introduced before they start talking here, it is Jen Ramos Eisen. And Jen, you were just before we started recording, you were telling us all about how far back you and Minda go. I didn't realize it was quite that deep, but it is so cool to see you and her come up through the system together. So thanks for joining us today, Jen.
Glad to be on.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. So Jen, for truth be told, for our listeners and for me as well, where are you coming from? Like, who do you write for? What's your bona fides, for lack of a better term?
So I have a very extensive background working in and around baseball. I have covered the California League for 13 seasons now, but I am also writing about baseball, labor, and economics in general. A lot of my work can be found at Defector. Previously, I've written for Baseball Prospectus, the Hardball Times, freelance a lot of places. I've written some stuff for like the San Jose Mercury News. So I write pretty much everywhere, but my most recent articles have been at Defector.
Gotcha. And I thought I saw your byline over there, but I mean, shoot, you know how folks bounce around in this sector, right? You can't say someone writes for one place anymore,
Yep, that is unfortunately the state of journalism these days, but I'm very glad that I can keep pitching Defector and they're interested in my stories.
Hell yeah, awesome. So if you've listened to this podcast, especially the off-season episodes for any period of time, you know where Jeremy and I can stand on some of the issues off the field, I would say, some of the things that impact how baseball operates in especially when it comes to dollar signs. So Jen is here to talk to us today a little bit, especially about something that I feel it pops up every now and then: private equity and baseball. And this is I don't know, like, there was a real seismic moment earlier on in December, I think it was, where nearly a dozen teams got sold to private equity in like a week. And it feels like, hey, it was a headline and then we moved on. But Jen, if I'm understanding this correctly, this is a part of a very impactful trend that we're seeing in minor league baseball.
I can say with the Kansas City Royals, 2 of the 4 teams are owned by private equity. One being the Omaha Storm Chasers, which is Diamond Baseball Holdings, and the Columbia Fireflies are Hardball Capital. The other 2, Quad City River Bandits, is Main Street Baseball LLC, and that one I know is not private equity backed. And I'm missing the other one right now.
The Northwest Arkansas Naturals,
Yes.
those are the AA affiliate.
Yes, Northwest Arkansas Naturals is Northwest Arkansas Baseball Incorporated, also not private equity. So we are getting close to half of minor league baseball owned by private equity. Diamond Baseball Holdings is the biggest one. They have 40. The limit is 50. They can get 14 teams per level, and they hit the 14 for both AAA and AA.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
It seems crazy to have so many teams owned by one entity, whether that entity is private equity or any entity.
Yeah, no, and Diamond Baseball Holdings, and I did a long feature on this for Defector, is that Diamond Baseball Holdings just kind of came out of nowhere, supposedly by 2021, where they first bought 9 teams. And their president and CEO have previously owned minor league teams before. Like their CEO, Peter Freund, was the owner of the Memphis Redbirds, and a lot of other teams. Pat Battle owned the Augusta Green Jackets. So those were like the first teams owned by Diamond Baseball Holdings. And then they started quietly buying up a lot of teams. One of the things that I noticed is when Shohei Ohtani was a free agent, a lot of the teams that they bought just went under the radar during winter meetings because everyone was focusing on where Shohei was going to sign. So a lot of times there was, I think, one off season where it seemed like they bought 7 teams. in the span of like 3 months. And it felt wild because all of these teams were just going to Diamond Baseball Holdings, and they are backed by Silver Lake, which also owns Endeavor, WWE, William Morris Endeavor Agency. They were previously owned by Endeavor, but the MLBPA said that there was a conflict of interest with like an ownership group having agents and owning teams. So then
That makes sense.
they sold up to Silver Lake, which is a parent company of Endeavor. So now it's all under the Endeavor and all under the Silver Lake umbrella. And they have so much money because it's all private equity. So now they're just buying up all these teams. But now that they are close to the cap, we're seeing other teams come in. The other groups come in buying teams like Prospector Baseball Group, which is backed by Arctos, and then On Deck Baseball, which is backed by Avenue Capital. And Avenue Capital is owned by Mark Lassery, who's the former Milwaukee Bucks owner.
Goodness gracious. Holy
Yeah.
smokes. So here's before we go down this path a little bit further, I believe that I've gotten ahead of ourselves here a little bit. And I say that because all three of us have an idea of what private equity is and what we mean when we say that. And this is I would love to hear y'all's perspective on it after myself, because I think we could all have unique details about what private equity is. In my mind, it's where you get funds from investors, wealthy individuals, and you pull it together and you use that money to buy a company. And what happens after that? Well, usually you're trying to get it so that you can sell it for profit, or you could sell parts of it for profit. Then you move on and you replicate the process over and over again. Jeremy, is that pretty on brand? I think you might have some different levels to that.
When I think of private equity, what I think of is a group that's not going to own something for long. The scenario that comes immediately to mind is when a private equity group bought Toys R Us and then shoved a bunch of debt on it and bankrupted it. And so that was going to be eventually one of my questions is that something we need to worry about with the minor league teams, or what is happening with when private equity starts buying a company, that company's usually in danger of just not existing anymore. So for them to buy so many minor league teams feels scary as a baseball fan.
Yeah, I think that's also been the worry of a lot of people that I've talked to in the minor leagues, especially because, like you mentioned, with Toys R Us, everyone knows what happened with that. I recently read Megan Greenwell's book, Bad Company, which kind of details what goes on with private equity, like if private equity buys hospitals or, they're buying up newspapers, they bought Toys R Us. There's a lot of different things that private equity does, and usually it's a negative thing when you see something that is backed by PE. With minor league baseball, the question is that what's going to happen to the minor leagues, and that's not something that I've been given a clear answer about despite all of my reporting. As a PE-backed firm, a lot of the times they just want to fly under the radar, and like no publicity is good publicity. So I don't have any answers from Diamond Baseball Holdings. They kind of refuse to let me talk to their CEO. It's great. They've gotten to the point where they don't give me any information about anything since my article came out, and nobody knows. And that's the question. Is like everyone keeps thinking about how the league was restructured in 2020, where they cut 2 levels. And they're worried that there will be more contractions coming, especially because there was a Sports Business Journal article that had come out years ago that said that Deputy Commissioner Dan Halem was the one who introduced Pat Battle to Peter Freund, who was working on the PDLs at the time. So they're wondering if like DBH was a front for MLB, and I got a quote saying they're not a front, but people still question what that connection was and why they were allowed to buy so many teams, because the previous rule prior to the restructuring was that you can only buy one team per league. So like you could only buy one team in the Eastern League, one team in the Carolina League. You could not buy more. Right now, the California League, there's 8 teams, 5 of them are Diamond Baseball Holdings.
Wow.
So that's a lot. That's more than half the league. And then the Visalia Rawhide were just bought by On Deck. So 6 of the 8 teams are private equity backed ownership groups now. Nobody knows what that exactly means for baseball. And the worry is more cuts, especially with the talk of the draft being reduced by a couple of rounds. And I saw that article in Baseball America recently. That's also been something that I've heard a lot about in the minor leagues is pushing minor league player development into the college level the way that the NFL works.
Mhm.
So that is always at the top of mind of like, is this the way that baseball is going?
Yeah.
Was just gonna say, it's funny that this is kind of a tangent, but it's funny to think about trying to push development from the minor leagues to college level when the minor leagues were just kind of created by teams that wanted to get ahead. You know, it used to be, oh, we're MLB, we draft these guys, we develop them here, and then it's like, oh, well, what if we had a team where they played, you know, and then they got better, and then they came here, and we do things that way, and it just kind of expanded. And so to then see it go the other direction is pretty upsetting in a sense of you're not the teams, the owners are prioritizing more and more, it sounds like, and I mean, we kind of knew this already, profits over quality of play, over well-being of players, over any of it. And it's just upsetting to see yet another example.
Need parts fast? O'Reilly Auto Parts has fast. Need them now? We've got now. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. We're O'Reilly Fast. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Most people don't realize how much of their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands on the hands of scammers, spammers, and even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it together at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/secure. Protect yourself now at aura.com/secure.
Of that.
Yeah, no, and that's one of the things that I've also noticed because I've done 13 seasons in the California League. I started when the league was high A, it's now low A, and low A is now the first level that guys see coming out of the complexes. I've seen the Northwest League when it was short season, and the quality of play is just so much different. You can see why there's a difference with less levels, and it's not positive. Like, you can tell that those levels need to come back. There was a reason why those levels existed. Low A, like, sometimes feels like I'm watching high school college ball. Short season, like, you could tell these guys had, like, experience. They were getting ready and getting to the pros. A lot of guys in low A, that is the first time they are playing in front of a crowd.
Mhm.
You can tell that player dev has just had to have a different approach because they don't have those incremental levels anymore. And the thing that I keep hearing is like, we're not going to see a guy coming up like with the star potential like Mike Trout or Bryce Harper anymore because those levels are gone. So it radically changes how baseball is going to be at the major league level, and I believe we are going to start seeing the effects of it soon now that we are about 5 years out from the restructuring and not seeing as many levels, and guys are coming up faster.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like we're already starting to see that with guys like Nick Kurtz and for Royals, Jack Caglione coming up the same the within a year of being drafted. And I also think we see it. You talked about the quality of play. I kept hearing all last year that AAA is further from MLB than it has been, at least in a long time, if not ever. And well, that makes sense when you have fewer players, you have a smaller talent pool. And you could say, oh, well, but we only removed the lower levels. And it's like, yeah, but guys that could have shown there and then gone up just don't even get to play anymore because you don't have any room.
Yeah. And The domestic reserve list went down. There's so many different factors that have gone in that the status of the minor leagues obviously will affect how the big leagues will play out in the second half of this decade. And we're not necessarily going to always have like a exciting World Series like we did last year with the Blue Jays and the Dodgers. Like that was an incredible World Series. It was good baseball. Well, let me let me correct myself there. It was good drama for baseball. It was not necessarily the best baseball you could watch. And of course, for a World Series, the drama is great. But when you're trying to also watch really good baseball, that wasn't necessarily it. And I think that's
Yeah.
going to be indicative of how things go.
Okay. So let me sorry, I'm going to pull us back to the boring stuff real quick on this, because I think that people can wonder what's like how does this impact us, right? And one point that I want to talk about that you brought up, Jen, is the fact that private equity firms, they like to usually operate in the background. They like to, provide the dollars and provide the decision making, but they don't want the publicity that comes with that power usually. And I think that looking at it in the scope of minor league baseball is a great way to look at it, because I'm sure the public perception is still like, oh well, these are just mom and pop family operations, and they're just doing the best they can, and that's why the stadium's falling apart, or that's why the promotions are so awful the past few years. But I mean, the kind of reality is that's probably more associated with cost cutting measures if you're owned by a private equity firm, right, Jen?
Correct. And new to 2026 is that Diamond Baseball Holdings is introducing dynamic pricing for minor league baseball,
Ugh.
which
Gross.
we already know that attendance is low midweek for minor league baseball, Tuesday, Wednesday crowds. Lucky to get like 300 people there. How is dynamic pricing going to look there? When there's rehabbers coming in, a bobblehead night, the prices are going to go way up. Minor league baseball was supposed to be the affordable alternative, especially when you don't live in a big league city. But what's that going to be now when you've got dynamic pricing? And it seems like DBH is starting this with a few teams. I don't know which teams they are because they won't answer any questions that I have. But it doesn't mean that the Omaha Storm Chasers are going to be immune. Like, it's
Right.
possible that they can institute dynamic pricing this year. What's that going to mean for Royals fans in Omaha who just want to see one of their favorite big leaguers rehab? What's that going to mean for a Saturday night fireworks game where they just want to go out with their family? What does that mean for like the community perspective of minor league baseball?
Yeah.
And the thing that gets me about dynamic pricing is that they'll talk about, oh, it's so it can go up and down, but it doesn't go down. The base level is still going to be what it always was. It's just going to go up on the nights where they think they can charge more. It never goes down. You talked about those weekday nights where they could get 300 people in the stands. Those people are still going to be paying the same amount for that weeknight ticket that they can't fill the stadium for. It's just dynamic pricing is one of the worst things that can exist in the world, I think.
And now we're getting it in minor league baseball, which is like one of the worst places to put it in.
Yeah. And if you need a little bit more understanding of what dynamic pricing is, I highly suggest you go on YouTube, go to A More Perfect Union, and they had a case study on dynamic pricing in groceries, which is like now that's a big push across the nation. So I think that encapsulates what that is. But y'all brought up like the community aspect, because that's that's why it's America's game. Like, that's why baseball feels so approachable. It feels like there's so many teams around the country that you could usually go catch a game if you really want to. But the community aspect has kind of pulled the wool over some folks' eyes, I would say. And we saw that with this whole stadium debacle going on in Kansas and Missouri, and public money going to stadiums and things like that. This is, this is from 2024. And I know that's almost 2 years. That's almost 2 years old now. It feels a little weird. But according to the Maine Center for Economic Policy, Diamond Baseball Holdings, like, their teams alone have gotten more than $300 million in public money from local governments, because no mayor or no member of the legislature wants to be the one that says, well, we lost the baseball team and it was all to save money so that we could address other things. That's not fun to be that person. I mean, Jen, I can, as private equity owns more, I can only see this public money going to these teams just increase as they know how to extract that money.
So, part of the restructuring is a new facility standard that was introduced in 2020, and it's meant to improve workplace conditions, which is great for the players and staff. And they do need that. Like, they do need locker rooms for women's staff, they need more, like, higher quality facilities than like all these rundown ballparks. I mean, the ballpark in Visalia opened in 1946. It is in desperate need of upgrades.
Yeah.
I have been there many times and I can say, like, yeah, facilities should be upgraded. But the thing is that despite the fact that they have enough money to upgrade these themselves, they go to local city governments and county governments and try to get the public funding, which we all know there's so many studies that say it is never a good investment for local government to put public dollars into sports venues. And we are seeing a lot of different cases across the country that kind of end up being like the Oakland Coliseum situation with the A's, but playing out in smaller cities like Eugene Emeralds currently do not have a place to play, and they are looking for a new ballpark to either like rehabilitate or move to because they're currently at the University of Oregon and they can't upgrade that because it's the University of Oregon's facilities. And it worked when it was short season, but now they're high A and it's just going to be an impossible arrangement. Lane County, the citizens voted no in building a new ballpark at the county fairgrounds because a lot of reasons being the taxes, their public dollars going to it. And Lane County outside of Eugene Springfield is a pretty rural county. That a lot of those dollars could be spent elsewhere. So now they're looking at moving out of Eugene, and perhaps to Medford, perhaps Salem Kaiser. I believe Medford is like the current front runner for it. I haven't checked that in a while, but the fact that they were relying on public dollars for that does say a lot about the state of minor league baseball. Modesto Nuts are gone, and a lot of that was an interesting case because the Mariners were going to pay for all $32 million in upgrades. But the deal breaker was that the city of Modesto wanted a 9% rent escalator for over 5 years. So the rent would increase 9% every year, which is a lot. Way more than the average 3-4%. And then Modesto Nuts got sold to DBH and they're gone. They're moving to Ontario, California. That entire stretch of minor league teams on the 10 in the Inland Empire are Diamond Baseball Holdings, Rancho Cucamonga Quakes, Inland Empire 66ers, Ontario Tower Buzzers, all DBH.
Wow. Wow. Jeremy, I'm sniffing some corporate welfare. Am I smelling something right here?
I mean, that stench never leaves the air, Jacob. I was just thinking, my first thought was, what other business could ask a government to pay for their new oh, wait, no, they all do that now.
Yeah, they all do.
I think they learned it from baseball, but they all do that now. And it's like Jen said, it's never a good investment idea. We're even seeing now they've taken it to the next level where the data centers that aren't even going to offer any jobs, they're just going to take power and land. Those are looking for government handouts. It's wild out here.
It is.
But like Jen said, these companies a lot of times, and this is what I've said about the Royals with trying to build a new stadium, they can afford to build a new stadium. They can. They might not like some of the things they have to do to make it happen. They might have to take some loans out, whatever, but they can. And they just don't want to. And they, like Jen said, they threaten to leave. Like you said, they threaten to leave, and the governments kowtow over and say, "Hey, no, I don't want to be the guy that let my team leave." So it's you know me. This is one of my big things is not giving the billionaires handouts, and it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating.
Every MLB team is valued at $1 billion or over. Every MLB team can afford this, and they just choose not to. And I think that is one of the biggest things. And back to Diamond Baseball Holdings, that also shows even more why they can afford a lot of things is, and this is not necessarily as talked about, but it is in my story that Diamond Baseball Holdings is a sponsorship escalator for minor league baseball, which means that they broker a lot of sponsorship deals. They had an Oatly deal, which is assumed to be Diamond Baseball Holdings. I know for sure that they brokered the Circle K deal. They broker a lot of these big national sponsorships that in a slide during the 2024 winter meetings, they said in 2025, minor league baseball was expected to be profitable for the first time, and there is revenue sharing for minor league teams. 5 figures, but it is still revenue sharing, which is not necessarily something that's commonly known about minor league baseball, but it does show that minor league baseball, despite all of the protests from big league teams saying like, oh, it's not profitable, we're putting guys there so that they can become, good big leaguers. No, it obviously can be profitable and will be profitable for as long as Diamond Baseball Holdings is a contractual escalator. And that is like one big part of why they have, I believe, 5 million in revenue is what was expected. So from there, and they also have like media rights deals with games being streamed on Bally. All teams now have to have their games broadcast on MILB TV. Before it was just radio feeds. Now you've got the TV broadcast for all home games, and there's media deals there all through Bally's. There is a market for all of this, and they are making money. So it then becomes like, so what are they doing with this money?
Yeah, and I think that it's fair to ask, like, okay, how can we fix this? I think of, and Jen, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I thought that the Columbus Clippers, a AAA team, aren't they like a public entity? Like
They
they're
are.
like, oh, because I see this issue and I think like, okay, well, why if cities and states want to invest money into these teams, why don't they just like, take over the team, for lack of a better sense, when that opportunity arises? But I was going back and like multiple of the big four sports have made this not possible, have made it so you can't have publicly owned teams. I know you have the Green Bay Packers, right? They have
Right.
their corporation. But after that happened, NFL made it so that no other teams could do that. Major League Baseball, you can't have a publicly owned MLB team, and I don't think you could have a publicly owned minor league team anymore after what happened with the Clippers. We talk about private equity, and there are some present benefits to it, Jen, that you brought up, but I don't know how good this is for the long-term health of minor league baseball. And unfortunately, I don't know of a way that we can deviate from this path right now if MLB is willing to move the goalposts that you talked about earlier on, Jen.
No, yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, the utopia meme, baseball's nationalized and everything is, publicly owned. The people get involvement in like the business decisions. The money goes back into the communities. That's the utopia meme. Unfortunately, we don't live in that. And while like the Green Bay Packers have obviously been like positive example of public ownership of a team, it's really clear that this is all like it's all for the profits. It's all for the billionaires wanting to stay billionaires and not wanting to redistribute the wealth. It is a lot of focusing on what is the most capitalistic thing that can possibly be done. Obviously, that goes right into the upcoming labor negotiations with MLB. The following that, December 1st, 2027 is when the minor league CBA is up as well. So
Ooh.
we've got 2 years of labor negotiations coming up. And we all already know that the one upcoming this year will be a contentious battle because of the way everything's already been playing out. And we all know that they want a salary cap. That is the thing that has been out there already. But it's also very clear that all of these teams can afford to have a payroll like the Dodgers or the Yankees. It's just that they don't choose to. And
Yeah, one of the graphics that was going around during the postseason showed the team profits as estimated by Forbes, and then the payrolls according to, I think it was Cots Contracts, it might have been Spot Rack, and showed like the percentage that the teams were spending. And I couldn't help but notice that even, obviously the Dodgers and the Blue Jays both have very large payrolls, but they're also high percentages of their profits, of their gross profits. And the teams that spent a high percentage of their gross profits did better than the teams that didn't, even disregarding, payroll disparity and disregarding market size disparity. So like, the Cubs spent a lot more than other teams, but their market size is so much more that it ended up being a smaller percentage and they didn't do very well. So that's been one of my, another of my hobby horses is to just, everyone keeps telling me, oh, this team can't spend, especially with the Royals, because this is a Royals podcast. The Royals can't spend anymore. They can't afford anymore. They can. They may choose not to. You can also, I know this is wild to suggest, you can run a baseball team at a loss. You can take your profits from your other things and your baseball team. Steve Cohen showed it in New York. You can run your baseball team as a hobby at a loss. When I play video games, I don't look to make a profit out of it. It's my hobby. I spend money on it. Baseball's a business. Baseball doesn't have to be a business. It's a game. It can be a hobby. My understanding of I didn't live 100 years ago, but my understanding was that it started out as a hobby to own a baseball team, and it's become a business.
Most people don't realize how much of their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it together at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/secure. Protect yourself now at aura.com/secure.
Need parts fast? O'Reilly Auto Parts has fast. Need them now? We've got now. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. We're O'Reilly Fast. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Yeah.
And I believe there was one time, I think it was the Phillies owner who said, like, no one's going to remember how much money I made from this team. They're going to remember championships that I've won.
No one gets a trophy for the most profitable team.
Nope.
Yeah.
Not at
And
all.
I think that's something that is currently lost on everyone, that like no one is going to care about like how much money is in your bank account other than you yourself. And I think that's one of the big things with baseball teams now is that they're all just going in it looking for that profit, looking for that bottom line. One of the things that I have come to the conclusion of, I studied economics in undergrad and then I was in a master's of public policy program where I also did economics at a graduate level. So I'm just like very much a nerd about this. But I went to college in Oakland, 2 miles from the Coliseum. And I was following the Oakland A's a lot despite not having grown up an A's fan. It was just right there. My brother was the A's fan, but they were always say Oakland A's is a small market. I lived in Oakland in the early 2000s during the tech boom. You cannot convince me that a Bay Area city was a small market. I am under the belief that the correct term is small payroll or low payroll, because that is actually what it is. All 30 teams are located in major metropolitan cities that are technically big markets. A small market could be something like Eugene. It's a small college town. Kingman, Arizona, very, very small market. Phoenix, Arizona, that's a large market. It's just varying on a scale of large, but it is a major metropolitan area. The payrolls are just low. Does that mean that they can afford increasing? Yes, every team can afford to, as we're seeing with John Fisher. Sacramento is one of the biggest cities in California. I believe is actually bigger than Oakland. He's not going to spend that money. And I've covered so many A's games in the last year. Like, I'm based in Fresno. It's so easy to get up to Sacramento, even though it's like a 3-hour drive. But like, I can get up to Sacramento pretty easily and cover games up there. And it is one of those things where, like, you can spend the money, you can afford it. You are in these big cities. It's not like, living outside of Fresno in a rural town. No, you are in the capital of California with hundreds of thousands of people. You can afford it.
Yep.
All of these owners can afford it. They just choose to have a low payroll in a big market. The minor league teams, they're all in small markets. Major league teams, there's a reason why they're called major league, big leagues. All of these are big metropolitan areas. My economist brain is just like, no, it's just a myth created by owners to get people to believe why they have small payrolls.
Mm-hmm.
Every single city can afford this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And Jen, I know this isn't the first time you've talked about this or written about this. So I want to remind folks that we'll have your work linked down in the podcast description so folks can check that out. But I want to pivot now to the labor stuff, because this is, what we're talking about now is no secret, right? Like this isn't I don't know, like a minority opinion. A lot of this is fact. Like, I maybe passionate about it can vary from person to person, but I think we can all agree on some certain truths that Jen and Jeremy are talking about here. So, Jen, I mean, I know a lot of folks are already preparing, hey, we're going to lose games in 2027. This is going to happen because we are expecting some big changes, especially when it comes to payroll. And I don't know, like, what are you thinking about this situation heading into the 2026 season?
So I feel like in the past 2 years, since I've focused much more on labor, the goalposts seem to keep moving. And it just seems like it doesn't, we don't exactly know how many games could be lost to a potential lockout. It's already been put out there that there could be a lockout. No one's saying as a certainty, but it all the vibes are just going oh no, we're gonna lose a lot of games because there will be a lockout. We don't know. And the first round of negotiations happens in the spring, I believe. So we'll see from there how that goes. But as it is right now, I mean, I keep thinking about the confrontation between Rob Manfred and Bryce Harper and how vocally anti-cap Harper was, and just that entire quabble after with Mark DeRosa saying you don't talk to the commissioner that way. And it just says a lot about how players feel about a potential cap and how the league feels. Vinny Pasquantino has been out there on Twitter saying I'm the type of player who could benefit from a cap, but it is not good for everyone. I have specifically bookmarked his tweets because it makes a good point. Even he is aware that he could personally benefit, but for the sake of his teammates, not good. And that is just something that stood out to me because it does seem like a lot of players are aware of what is at stake here. And they all know that it all depends on how much owners are willing to spend and increase payroll. And that's the thing. Do we know if these owners will actually want to increase payroll? We know John Fisher isn't. We know Dick Monfort isn't. We know Bob Nutting isn't. So then it becomes that narrative they said where oh, Dodgers are ruining baseball because they spend. Well, no, it's actually the Fishers, the Monforts, and the Nuttings that have ruined baseball because they're not putting together a competitive team. I believe it was Patrick Dubuque in Baseball Protects that said a salary cap cannot make owners care about putting together a competitive team. And that's still going to be the thing.
Yeah, it's always the cry of the fans. We got to have a salary cap so everybody will be competitive. And it doesn't. If you set a salary cap and most of your teams or even half of your teams or however many teams aren't anywhere near the cap, it doesn't make them any more competitive. It just suppresses the salaries.
And I do want to point out the NFL has a salary cap. The New York Jets exist.
And the Cleveland Browns.
Yep.
The NBA has a salary cap. I grew up a Sacramento Kings that says everything. Yeah, I grew up a Kings fan. We've seen what that team has gone through. that's not going to fix things.
The NFL, because some people argue, oh, look at, the Colts were really bad last year and then they were really good this year, or the Broncos. The NFL also has a salary floor, pretty high salary floor, which MLB hasn't really considered. Even when they briefly talked about, last negotiations talked about a salary floor in MLB, and it was so low as to be meaningless. And so I wrote an article today for Royals Review. This is the New Year's resolutions MLB needs to make. And one of them I put in there was, we need a salary floor. That's what will make teams be more competitive with each other, is a salary floor. And I'm afraid they're going to have to take a cap to get a floor, but I don't know if players will stomach that. And even then, you have to talk about, well, where's the floor going to be? Where's the cap going to be? And if the cap is, $250 million, well, that's a lot less money some of these teams can spend. And if the floor is $80 million, nobody has to spend any more. So, it's got to be the negotiate. It's scary because, we all cover baseball one way or another, and we're all fans of baseball. We want it to be around, but boy, it sure feels like we're gonna lose some games in 2027. Do you get any kind of sense? Would it be like, I feel like it would be disaster to lose the entire season? Does that seem at all possible to you, Jen? Or is that's like, nah, we probably won't lose the whole season?
So going off my gut intuition and just the vibes, it is complete crapshoot. I don't know if we're gonna lose half a season.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we're going to lose a whole season. We're definitely going to lose games. That's the most that I've gathered from just the pulse of where things are. It doesn't seem like the league and the PA are close on an agreement on anything. Again, using the confrontation between Harper and Manfred as kind of an example of where the pulse is, that just seems so far apart. And you're right about the floor, is that it could force teams to be competitive, but we don't know where they're going to place that floor at. Is it going to be at an A's payroll? Is it going to be at a Rockies payroll, Pirates? Or are we actually going to have something significant there? And you can't have a floor without a cap. That's just how it goes. So, and that is something that Dave Roberts said on a podcast recently, where he said that he's in favor of a cap, but only if there's a floor to, quote, make those bottom feeders actually spend money.
Yeah.
That there's a point to be made there, but it's also what is that floor going to look like? Because at the same time, again, the New York Jets exist, the Sacramento Kings exist. A cap's not going to fix anything, but will a successful floor fix things?
I don't know.
It feels like it has to at least do something, because we see the Athletics are, to me, a great example. They've got Nick Kurtz and Jacob Wilson, and it's like, ooh, there's some real talent on that team. But then the only free agent move they made last offseason, I think they've done anything this offseason, was to sign Luis Severino.
Yes.
And give him
Who
way
hates
more
it
money
in
than they
Sacramento.
should have. But that's not enough. You got to do more than that. And they're like, but we spent. No, you didn't.
The most that they've done this offseason so far is extend Tyler Soderstrom.
Right.
Great.
And then the Pirates, everyone's like, oh, the Pirates are spending. They gave $30 million to Ryan O'Hearn. That doesn't fix your team. And that's the biggest free agent contract they've ever spent. The Royals, we have talked about on the show many times how the Royals the last couple of years under John Sherman have spent more. And yet their biggest free agent contract is still Alex Gordon, if you consider that a free agent contract, because he just had ended one with the Royals, or Ian Kennedy at 5 years, $72 million. I mean, it's not nothing. I'd certainly like to make $72 million over 5 years, let me tell you, but it's peanuts compared to what they could be spending.
Correct.
So I grew up a San Francisco Giants fan, being in the Central Valley. Fresno Grizzlies were a AAA team for the Giants, so I saw Buster Posey there and everything. So I just kind of got stuck in that. It was either that or Las Vegas 51s, which were Dodgers at the time. So really, I was going to get stuck with a NL West team no matter what. But I remember those dynasty teams that the Giants had and watching them through college. There were no actual stars on the team that they signed as a free agent. They were acquired via trade. They were homegrown guys. They were waiver wire picks like Cody Ross. Payroll wasn't there. I think the thing is, like, that's what the league wants to see more of. Weird moves like that are low risk, high reward, low payroll, high profit. That's not realistic.
Yeah.
Like, I still keep thinking, like, I saw those teams play those years. How the hell did they make it to the World Series? It just does not seem like a team on paper that will win, but they managed to. But that's what it seems like the narrative that they want out there is that, like, oh, these Cinderella teams can go out there and win. They don't want to see like the big Goliath. They tried to make the Blue Jays kind of like that Cinderella story. They're owned by Rogers Corporation, the largest telecommunications company in Canada. I don't know how you can get that. Like, the Giants at the time, one of their owners was like a CEO of Safeway, one of the biggest grocery stores in California. Like, how are you going to tell me that all of these teams are a Cinderella story when, like, they're all billionaires?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Blue Jays had the 4th largest payroll in MLB last year. That's not a Cinderella team.
Yeah, no. They purposely built a very good team, and now they're going back out there again and building more because they know they can build off it. Where are all the other teams going with
That
us?
was another thing I was going to say, is that we were talking about small markets, comparably. But I remember when Cleveland used to sell out their stadium every game, every year, because they were a talented team. And yeah, you had to pay more for your roster, but you got more from your ticket sales, from your merch sales, from your advertising opportunities. And it seems like teams could do that, but they all prioritize the sure profits of well, if the team's not good, we'll still make this amount of money, so let's just not spend anything and we'll still make that much money, rather than go for a high no risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think like one of the big points that I always make and is always just kind of like drives the point home is I was at the ALDS Game 5 in 2012 at the Oakland Coliseum where Justin Verlander shut down the Oakland A's. That whole stadium was sold out. It was packed. Everyone stayed well after the final out just because they had such a good season. It was good baseball, and the city just loved the team so much. They wanted to do a standing ovation for what a good season it was. I have not experienced any kind of moment other like that than the 2012 ALDS game because that city freaking loved the A's so much. Put together a winning team, the fans will come. Why are
Yeah,
they
we-
worrying about profits when putting together a winning team will always bring in more money?
We've seen that in Kansas City. When the team has been good, which is not often, when the team has been good, the fans show up. They show up. They were selling out constantly in 2015. You just got to have an actually good team and be willing to make an effort.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. I genuinely, this is, I don't know. This is one of those conversations that it is good to have on our level and to keep baseball fans thinking about it, right? Because this is the reality of the game. We're not going out and watching Field of Dreams every single day for 162 days. It is baseball is a
Thank
business right now. What'd you say?
Thank goodness I don't like Field of Dreams.
I know. I still listen. I know
You
it's
mean
not the
Mr.
best
Baseball?
one.
What do you mean Major League?
Yeah, Bull Durham. Can we agree on that one? Bull Durham, maybe. There you go. There you go.
Bull Durham's better than Field of Dreams. I'll give you that much.
I keep saying Twilight is a baseball movie just because
Oh my
it's funny.
gosh. Listen, if Die Hard can be a Christmas movie, Twilight's a baseball movie.
did get tricked into watching Twilight because there was baseball in it.
Oh my goodness. I need to.
And then I saw the baseball and I'm like, what have you done to my game?
It's definitely one of those hot dog is a sandwich opinions.
Yes. Yes, that's a good one. So I say all that, Jen, because if listeners need to take one thing away from this conversation, whether it be private equity, whether it be the labor situation, payroll, what do you think that should be?
I think it's just to be conscious of what the narrative is out there and thinking critically about it. And I think it's just a lot of like being able to have media literacy and knowing what is coming out as propaganda and was actually fact.
Can I I just want to tack on to that all of the evil or less than ideal business practices you see in baseball, I want to remind everyone that these are practiced everywhere in business.
Yep.
Corporations aren't your friend. Baseball teams aren't your friend. So as you're aware of this stuff, it's good to learn about, not just because baseball, you're like, "Oh, I don't care, I just want to watch the guys play." This is affecting your life. So it's one of the reasons I love to talk about this topic is because it applies outside of baseball.
One of the key lessons that I learned in my journalism grad program, I'm overeducated, but one of the things that my professor said, was sports are a mirror of how society is going. And when you pay attention to what's going on in sports, you also have an idea of what's going on in the world. So, looking at how capitalism works in baseball, you're seeing how the world is working on a global level.
I like that. I like that. The one, as you know, Jen said the one point, Jeremy tacked on. So I do have one more thing to tack on, and this brings it back to Kansas City, because we saw how one sided the Kansas City Chiefs stadium deal was, and we talked about it a little bit. I don't think that we could spend enough time talking about how one sided that was, and I just want to say that hopefully, whenever the Royals time comes, we're still hearing stuff come out. I hope that people have the power to vote on it again and help that decision making. And please understand where these teams are at, where they can grow, and where there should actually be negotiation. And ultimately, it doesn't change the fact public money does not benefit you going to a sports stadium. All right, Jen Ramos Eisen, everyone, this was honestly a great conversation. I know we didn't really talk about baseball on the field at all, and that's just the off season for you right now. It's January 5th when we're recording this, so we're still a good ways away from pitchers and catchers reporting down to Arizona or
Less than 2
Florida.
months.
Yeah, I say a good amount of time. So Jen, sorry, this was
It feels like it's going to be forever, but
it does. It does. This was a running bit, Jen, because I remember after the last Royals game, I was saying on the podcast with Jeremy, like, oh, well, it's going to get really slow. We're not going to have a lot to talk about. And then, like, for about a month and a half straight, we had something new to talk about every single day. And it was just like, well, that just goes to show how the baseball offseason can go. So I hope things pick up now that the holidays are over. What do you think, Jeremy? Do you think they're going to pick up?
probably. We've still got a bunch of top free agents that need to get signed for some dollar amount, whether
Yep.
it's as much as they think they deserve or as much as they probably deserve or not.
Exactly. And I know Scott Boras is not liking the idea of a salary cap coming after this season. But Jet,
Scott Boros is an example, I think, of the worst guy is right.
Yes.
When you hate it when the worst guy is right about something.
yeah, ain't that the truth? So Jeremy, did you tell Jen at all about reviews?
I did.
Are they ready? Well, what
Why
do you think,
doubt
Jen?
me?
Well,
Yeah.
because I forget sometimes. Like, that's why I doubt you, because I doubt myself. So I'm projecting that
Reviews
doubt.
are my favorite part of the podcast. I never forget them.
But Jen, since you're a guest, could you please kick?
So I'm gonna kick it off with a review of this movie that I saw over the summer that I'm just thinking about because I skeeted it on Blue Sky recently. That it annoyed me because they got the 1993 draft order wrong. Caught Stealing also could be considered maybe a baseball movie because there is a lot of baseball elements to it. Also is just like a panic attack moving through the entire movie. I gave it 3 stars on Letterboxd, but man, they got the 1993 MLB draft order wrong.
It's like it's just a factual thing. Like you could
Yes.
just get that right.
Like,
Exactly.
Baseball Reference has it.
Yeah.
I'm sure Wikipedia has it. Like, you could. That is just a lack of attention to detail. I would say that.
Can I just real quick? Can I just ask what is your favorite baseball movie, Jen? Or is that too charged? Or can you tell me?
Okay, I had to think about it for a second. Sugar.
That was on my list to watch
okay.
and review a couple of years ago. I guess I'll have to get around to it now.
I watched it at the beginning of my minor league career and gave me a little bit of idea of like the plight of Latin American players, and I think that also served as like a subconscious inspiration for one of the articles that I wrote for Defector about like how the life of a non-English speaking minor leaguer is. My parents are from the Philippines. They're immigrants. So like I kind of have like a little bit of that mindset of like knowing the differences of like how these things operate, sending money home to your family. So sugar, I think, was a really good example of how it could be for Latin American players in the pre-unionized minor leagues.
Okay,
Wow.
cool.
Yeah,
I
haven't heard
definitely
that
need
pick.
to check that out. Thank you.
Yeah. Before I know, Jeremy, you got a review. I got another quick one. So let
All right.
me jump in here. Because I just finished it on the flight out to California. It's the latest book from MLB writer Jonathan Mayo, Smart, Wrong, and Lucky. This book came out in like 2023, so it's not really new. But it tells the story like player by player of the scouting process and developmental process of several players: Charlie Blackmon, Joey Votto, Albert Pujols, guys
I've
like
heard of those
that.
guys.
Yeah, no, pretty notable guys. I just liked hearing from the scouts. There's a lot of interviews in here. It's not a, it's a very quote heavy book, but it was a good read and a very good off season read, I would say. So go check that out. And I would love to see another version of something like this in 10 years when we're talking about today's stars. Jeremy, over to you.
I'll try and keep it short this week. I
Uh-oh.
watched over the weekend, finally, what's it called? Blade Runner 2049, which is, of course, the sequel to the cult classic. I didn't get the original Blade Runner, and I don't get the sequel either. I don't understand why people like those movies, honestly. I want to like them. I should like them. I love Harrison Ford. I love Ryan, his last name I've suddenly forgot, Gosling.
Yes.
I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. I don't get those movies. So it might be good, it might be bad. I don't know. I didn't get it.
Okay. All right, Jen, I know you got to go. So please go ahead and dip on out. And folks, just find your links down in the podcast description below. It's well worth your time. Jen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on.
Of course. And that is going to do it for today's episode of the Royals Rundown podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Jeremy talked about it a little bit. The New Year's resolution article came out. There's two other ones in there that we've spoken about on the podcast before, but if you want to see that in written form, go check it out on the website. But we got some other Royal stuff going on. We'll talk about it on the next podcast episode. We're back.
We're only about a month away from the Royals making their one big move to finish off the offseason.
Manifesting Kyle Tucker. Manifest.
At this point, I think Bo Bichette is legitimately in play.
Ooh, interesting. I would love to talk about that more on the next.
Getting whatever deal he wanted. He is not getting it. John Heyman is out here pitching for him.
Yeah, it's that's never a good sign when John Heyman is shucking for you out in the public space. So we'll talk about that more on the next episode and kind of give a preview or start previewing how we are going to approach the 2026 season. But until next time, I'm Jacob Milham. They're Jeremy Greco. Make sure to check out our guest today, Jen Ramos Eisen, at their links down in the podcast description below. Thank you so much for joining us today. And until next time, go Royals.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.